bound by freedom. In a small town nestled between green hills lived a woman named Trice. She was a gentle soul, with a smile that could light up a room and eyes full of dreams. But the men in her town never seemed to see her for the person she was. They only saw her as something to be owned. From the local tavern to the market square, she faced harassment at every corner. Each day, as she walked to her shop, a group of men would make crude remarks, touching her arm as she passed by, laughing at her discomfort. Her friends, too, faced similar treatment. It wasn't just the physical advances, the words, the stares, the judgment. They made her feel small, unseen. Trice kept her head down, forcing a smile whenever one of the men tried to speak to her. She never made a fuss, believing that speaking up would only make things worse. But inside she was suffocating. One afternoon, as she hurried to avoid another encounter, she bumped into a woman she had seen around town but never truly spoken to. Her name was Beatrice, a fiery, independent woman who worked as a seamstress. Beatrice had lived through her own torment at the hands of the men in the town, but unlike Trice, she had fought back, silently but fiercely. "Beatrice, are you all right?" Beatrice asked, noticing the fear in Trice's eyes. Trice nodded, though her trembling hands betrayed her. "Beatrice, you shouldn't have to live like this. We shouldn't have to walk around in fear." The words hit Trice deeply. She had always felt alone in her struggle, but in that moment, standing next to Beatrice, she realized she wasn't the only one. Beatrice's fierce spirit sparked something inside her. A fire she hadn't realized was smoldering beneath her silence. The two women started to meet regularly, exchanging stories, sharing their experiences. They found strength in each other, a bond forming between them. They discussed what it would take to stop the men from terrorizing them, and every woman in the town. It was clear that they couldn't rely on anyone else to change things. They would have to do it themselves. One day, they decided it was time to stand together. The next morning, they dressed in the brightest clothes they had, red and blue fabrics, bold and unyielding, and they made their way to the heart of the town square, where the men often gathered. As they walked, hand in hand, the men jeered and called out to them, but this time Trice didn't flinch. Beatrice's firm grip on her hand reminded her of the strength she had always carried within her. The women stopped in front of the crowd, their backs straight, eyes unwavering. "Beatrice, you think you can control us?" Beatrice called out, her voice strong and steady. The men fell silent, taken aback by the defiance they rarely saw in the women of the town. "Trice, we're done being afraid. We're done letting you push us around." A murmur went through the crowd, and a few men stepped forward, trying to assert their dominance, but Beatrice and Trice held their ground, their hands still tightly clasped together, a symbol of unity and power. "Beatrice, you will not control us anymore. We fight for our freedom, for our dignity, and we won't stop until every woman in this town can walk without fear." Trice felt a surge of strength, the power of Beatrice's words infusing her with courage. She looked around at the other women who had gathered, silent witnesses who now seemed to stand taller, their eyes shining with the same hope she felt. The men hesitated. They had never been confronted in this way before. It was as if the weight of the women's collective strength was finally sinking in. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in years, Trice didn't feel like a victim. She didn't feel like someone to be ignored, to be silenced. She was a woman, and with Beatrice at her side, she was free. Gap 3S. The town's initial reaction was just the beginning. As the days turned into weeks, the ripple effect of Trice and Beatrice's courageous stand began to take hold. The women of the town, inspired by the bravery they had witnessed, started to voice their own stories and struggles. Community gatherings became a common sight, with women sharing their experiences and finding strength in each other's words. These gatherings sparked a series of small but significant changes, Shops and businesses began to adopt fairer practices, ensuring women were treated with the respect and dignity they deserved. Schools introduced new curriculums that emphasized equality and respect, teaching the next generation the values that Trice and Beatrice had fought for. Even the town's governance saw a shift, with more women stepping into leadership roles, bringing a fresh perspective and a commitment to change. The men who once held unquestioned power began to understand the importance of equality and respect. Some resisted, but many chose to stand alongside the women, recognizing that the strength of a community lies in its unity. The town, once a place of silent suffering, transformed into a beacon of hope and progress. Trice and Beatrice's actions had planted the seeds of a revolution, and as those seeds grew, the entire community began to flourish. The change was slow, but it was steady, and it was real. Gap 3S, Trice and Beatrice watched with pride as their town evolved, knowing that their fight had paved the way for a brighter, more equitable future. The revolution they had begun was no longer just theirs. It belonged to everyone. Gap 3S. As the town continued to transform, so did Trice and Beatrice. Their journey of personal growth became a beacon of inspiration for everyone around them. Trice, who once doubted her own strength, found herself emerging as a natural leader. Her voice, once hesitant, now resonated with confidence and conviction. She became a mentor to many, guiding them through their own struggles and fears. Her courage became her greatest asset, and her ability to inspire others only grew stronger with each passing day. Beatrice, on the other hand, discovered a sense of purpose she had never known before. Her creativity and compassion flourished as she organized community events and workshops, teaching skills and crafts that empowered others. She found joy in seeing the spark of hope ignite in the eyes of those she helped. Her empathy and unwavering support became the foundation upon which many built their newfound strength. Together, Trice and Beatrice continued to inspire a wave of change, both within themselves and in their community. Their bond deepened, rooted in mutual respect and shared experiences. They celebrated each small victory, knowing that every step forward was a testament to their resilience and determination. Their personal growth was a testament to the power of unity and the impact of standing up for what is right. They showed that change begins within, and when individuals grow, their communities flourish. Trice and Beatrice's journey was far from over, but they faced the future with hope and a renewed sense of purpose. Gap 3S. The town watched as their two heroines evolved, understanding that their own growth was intertwined with the progress of their community. Trice and Beatrice had become symbols of strength and hope, proving that when individuals rise, they lift everyone around them. The seeds of change they had planted were now blossoming, and the future looked brighter than ever. Gap 3S. The impact of Trice and Beatrice's actions began to ripple beyond the borders of their town. News of their bravery and the transformation of their community spread like wildfire, reaching neighboring towns and cities. Women from afar were inspired by their story, and many began to stand up against their own oppressors. Messages of solidarity poured in, and soon a network of support and unity began to take shape. In distant towns, gatherings were held where women shared their experiences and found strength in each other's stories. Workshops and events similar to those organized by Beatrice started popping up everywhere, fostering a sense of empowerment and skill sharing. Trice's leadership inspired others to take charge and become advocates for change in their own communities. The movement grew, transcending geographical boundaries and cultural differences. Social media became a powerful tool, amplifying their message and connecting like-minded individuals from all corners of the world. The hashtag #BoundByFreedom became a symbol of the global fight for equality and justice. Trice and Beatrice traveled to some of these towns, sharing their journey and encouraging others to keep pushing forward. They saw firsthand the impact of their efforts, the light in the eyes of women who were no longer afraid to speak up, the unity among people who had once felt isolated, and the hope that now permeated through every gathering. The world was changing, one community at a time. Trice and Beatrice's story had become a beacon of hope, proving that when individuals come together with a shared purpose, they can create a force powerful enough to change the world. The seeds of unity and hope they had planted were now blooming far and wide, and the future looked brighter than ever. Gap 3S. As they returned to their town, Trice and Beatrice knew that their journey was part of something much larger. They had ignited a movement, and it was now up to everyone to keep the flame burning. Together they had shown that unity and hope were not just ideals, but powerful forces that could reshape the world. And that day, something changed. Slowly but surely, other women began to join the fight. The town square that once felt like a place of fear became a space for solidarity, for unity. The men who had once harassed them now found themselves retreating into silence, their power slipping away. Trice and Beatrice didn't just fight for their own freedom. They fought for every woman who had ever been silenced, for every woman who had ever feared walking in the light of day. Together, they showed the world that women, when united, could never be broken. And as the sun set that evening, Trice and Beatrice stood in the square, hands still joined, knowing they had begun a revolution of their own, a revolution of freedom, of strength, and of hope.